Britain is going to make the Great Escape. We're going to get out of this union. Join in.
Now, I'm very wary indeed about wartime comparisons, but I'll say this. If some of the people peddling these frightening scenarios had been in charge of the Normandy landings, the ships would never have left the south coast.
I mean, this is Magna Carta, it's the burgesses coming at Parliament, it's the Great Reform Bill, it's the Bill of Rights, it's so many. It's Waterloo, it's Agincourt, it's Cressy, and we win all these things. And it is Trafalgar. And Trafalgar.
My father was at D-Day. He was never bullied by any German. And I'm his son. I'm not going to be bullied by any German either.
People fought and died, as my own father died in the last war, fighting for the right of the British people to resist tyranny.
I would never tell a German MP how to vote in the Bundestag. Perhaps Mr. Enders, a former German paratrooper, could pay British MPs the same courtesy.
And my grandfather fought in World War I and my father fought in World War II to give democratic rights to countries within Europe. I believe that the leading elites of Europe might as well be from another planet.
In 1938, Chamberlain came back from Berchtesgaden with a piece of paper declaring peace in our time. His message was almost universally acclaimed. Only a few dissented against the wish of the people, led by Churchill, who was denounced as a warmonger, a pessimist, and no doubt a moaner. And then Hitler invaded Czechoslovakia. My lords, I fear that the vote for Brexit will turn out as one of those occasions.
The latest exchange of letters between the EU and the Prime Minister and the advice from the Attorney General, I sort of compare it with the vision of Neville Chamberlain coming back from meeting Hitler saying that peace in our time.
Not since Chamberlain went to Munich to meet Hitler and came back waving a piece of paper saying peace in our time has a British Prime Minister had so inept or ignoble a conclusion to negotiations.
I'm sure the irony has not been missed on the Prime Minister that it's exactly 80 years ago that another Conservative Prime Minister came back from Europe waving a piece of paper and claiming success. I believe the exact words were peace in our time, and it was Neville Chamberlain.
We have just had Remembrance Day. I just simply want people to reflect on the fact that for one moment they might just recall the fact that those millions of people who died in both world wars died for a reason. It was to do with sustaining the freedom and democracy of this House.
My lords, they all draw a certain amount of attention to the history of referendums in this country since 1975. And, of course, that was quite influenced by the use of referendums so successfully by Hitler.
It is a very dangerous step towards the doctrine that the people's will must always prevail. My lords, this is the doctrine which has always been favoured by Hitler, by Mussolini, by Stalin.
I think that Winston Churchill stood up for parliamentary democracy, and that's what I believe in, and that's what I think we should be preserving.
As we engage with our European counterparts, we must, my lords, revive the winning spirit of Sir Winston Churchill. In the film, Churchill declares, "You cannot reason with a tiger when your head is in its mouth."
And I'd like to take, Mr. Speaker, take the House to another quote from Winston Churchill from the early 1930s, where he warned of ignoring the warnings of our followers in the country, of ignoring the signs of the times, and he said, "This was one of those awful periods which recur in our history when the noble British nation seems to fall from its high estate, loses all trace of sense or purpose, and appears to cower frothing pious platitudes." I think, Mr. Speaker, of global Britain, of Brexit means Brexit.
And if I may declare an interest, I do take a personal interest in this, because my own father was killed in Normandy fighting for this country, and I'm proud of the fact he got the military cross in Normandy for that reason. And I simply say this, that this is something which I believe many people outside in this country really understand and believe. It's not something which is easy to explain. It is to do with the fact that people understand the real reasons why self-government is so important.
The idea we are richer and securer with this disastrous project is cloud cuckoo land stuff. It is broad, sunlit uplands for the UK economy. If we deregulate, if we trade with the rest of the world, if we look beyond this narrow European focus.
These are fears which are being raised deliberately to frighten the British people. We should have confidence in our ability to exit the EU and head for the sunlit uplands where we can prosper as an independent nation on our own.
My right honourable friend recall the words of Francis Drake. There must be a beginning. There must be a beginning of any great matter, but the continuing unto the end until it be thoroughly finished yield the true glory. Now I wish my right honourable friend good luck and good fortune in her negotiations until she comes to true glory and is welcomed back to this house as a 21st century Gloriana.
Philip II of Spain, Louis XIV of France, Napoleon and Hitler all wanted to create a single European power. And what Boris has said is that the EU is following the footsteps of these historic figures but using different means.
The key thing here is to interrogate the assumptions that are made and to ask if these arguments are good. Albert Einstein, during the... I mean, we have to be careful about historical comparisons, but Albert Einstein during the 1930s was denounced by the German authorities for being wrong, and his theories were denounced, and one of the reasons, of course, he was denounced is because he was Jewish. They got 100 German scientists in the pay of the government to say that he was wrong.
Yet again, one day to go and you mention the Nazis. What's wrong with you people? Why do you keep mentioning the Nazis? Do you regret it?
Yes, I am sorry. I was asked a direct question and I answered it in a clumsy way with an inappropriate historical analogy.